Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We're excited you're all here today for another episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Jordan. Joining me today is SNAP educator Angelica Pena and Cooking Matters volunteer Lauren. So as we all know, Cooking Matters is a collaboration between Share Our Strengths Cooking Matters program and the University of Minnesota Extension. Cooking Matters classes are in-person or online nutrition-based cooking classes that meet once a week for 2 hours for a total of 6 weeks. Classes feature a nutrition educator and a chef that work together to teach our participants how to make a healthy, delicious, affordable meal and learn about some fun nutrition topics along the way. Today, we are going to follow that same format. Angelica will be our chef, Lauren will be today's moderator, and I will be our nutrition educator. And today we'll be making sweet potato and apple pie bake. We'd like to thank the creators of this recipe, which is Colorado State University and the University of California at Davis, with the Eat Smart Being Active recipes. And of course, just like every week, we do have a survey for you all to take. We greatly appreciate any feedback. So if you could please take that survey after this video, again, we'd greatly appreciate it. You will need a program code as usual for the survey. So the program code as well as the survey link can be found in the live chat as well as in the description box of the video. So as I said, please take that survey after this video. We really appreciate that feedback. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with today's recipe. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Angelica to get started.
Hello, everyone out there. I'm so happy to see you, or not see you for that matter. I hope you enjoy the recipe that we have for today. Generally, you start thinking about fall and fall flavors, and you think, ooh, sweet potato pie, apple pie. No, this marries both delicious flavors and makes a delicious treat and very nutritious as well. So for our recipe, we will be needing a few ingredients, not very many. I was surprised that this recipe is very, very limited as far as ingredients. We'll need apples, of course, and we have our Granny Smith apples. And for today, we're going to be using a canned sweet potatoes. And if you can, try to get them with less sugar or no sugar at all. This particular brand does have some. When we do use this, we make sure that we drain it. And this recipe requests for you to keep 2 tablespoons of the actual liquid that comes with it. So I've already separated that as well. And who remembers the very super important thing to do even before you start anything? Obviously, we need to wash our hands, right? And who can tell me exactly how long to wash our hands?
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Yep. It seems like a long time and a short time at the same time, but you could sing the ABCs song 2 times during that time. So I've already washed my hands. So yay, fast forward 20 seconds. So here we are. And so we're going to need our sweet potatoes, a can of sweet potatoes, or according to this, 3.5 cups of sweet potatoes drained, 2 cups of apples. It asks for you to peel them and core them. You can do that, or you could keep the skin on them because it's really, there's a lot of nutrients on the skin as well. So I've done half and half for my recipe because I want a little bit of both. So, and it requests 2 cups of that and 6 teaspoons of brown sugar, or 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. It's the same amount either way. And I didn't have any nuts, but if you have nuts at home, or if you don't have a nut allergy, it's also recommending a 1/3 cup of chopped pecans, walnuts, or any other type of nuts that you want to sprinkle up on top. 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Now, easiest way to remember this recipe, 2 tablespoons of, also you need flour, 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And to that beautiful mixture, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of oatmeal also. So that way it gives it a little bit more of a crispier texture for our topping. So let's go ahead and start. So we've washed our hands, we have our ingredients. Always follow the instructions on your recipe. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees. The next step is to put, and I've chosen a to-go container for, I could take this somewhere else, a pan. So the very first instructions is that it asks is for us to drain our sweet potatoes, leave 2 tablespoons worth of liquid on the side, and put those in your pan. You'll notice that they're really big chunks. And I don't know about you, but I can't eat that big of a chunk. So we could easily, this is a really good part where one of our children can use a spatula and just easily cuts them up. Really easy because they're already cooked, and that just takes you 5 seconds, because it's requesting for us to have chopped up apples and to chop them up into bite sizes. So it's always nice to have everything that you're going to have in your recipe the same size, because it will cook the same. So see, easy peasy. I got it. We'll just put that to the side for now. And then the next thing it's asking is to add apples. But we haven't cut up our apples yet. So there's these nifty little tools. Always make sure you take off the labels. That's not fun when you eat those. Nifty little tools to go ahead and core our apples. Put it in the center. Sometimes I have a really good strength. Sometimes I don't. And it looks like today I don't, because I've already done 6 other apples today. Anyway, you get the drift. So I have some apples over here that I've already cored, as you can see. And then we just want to cut them into smaller pieces. And if you notice how I'm holding my apples, I'm keeping away from the knife. I'm using, as what I like to call, the claw. Because we like saying hello with all our fingers, not just one, not just 3. So, that's my gimmick. I like the claw. And if you notice, I'm using a rocking motion to make these little pieces of apple. That way they're bite size. And I've already got some right here in my nifty bowl next to me. So we've got already some of those, 3 cups worth. Right here in our recipe, it doesn't ask for cinnamon. But if you like cinnamon flavor, this is a good time to add a little bit of cinnamon. 1 tablespoon should be suffice. You put in a tablespoon and just toss it around. That way it's all nice and even.
Angelica, we do have a question for you.
Sure.
What apples can you use in this recipe? I think you're using green today. Can you use other apples?
I believe it could go based on what's available in your area. You don't necessarily have to have the most beautiful, biggest, expensive apple. If you've got your little bag of Washington or Red Delicious or Honey Crisp, whatever is available in your area, that's what you can use. Even the apples that you pick outside from your own apple tree, perfect. You're always having to look for something new and delicious to do with those. So it doesn't matter the type of apple, but with the sweetness of the sweet potato, it would be nice to put it in with a tartar type apple. That way it balances itself out.
Sure.
So I've got my apples all cut up now. It asks for me to mix these with my sweet potato. So I'm going to add those in there. So if you had cinnamon, these apples would look a little speckled, but these don't have cinnamon. So you just mix them up a little. And now we're going to work on our topping. So for our topping, like I mentioned, it's 2 tablespoons of flour. Let's do this to the front. And I've already have everything pre-measured. So it's 2 tablespoons of flour. Put that in a nice bowl. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, nice and packed. That is also something that's really fun for kids to play with and to measure. So that would be a nice project. and teaches them how to count and to measure. I've got my 2 tablespoons of, you can barely see it, oatmeal in there. So I'm going to mix this up a little bit before I add my butter. That way I don't get big clumps of sugar, and have it all mixed up pretty nice and neat.
Yes, we do have some whole grains in there with those oats, but I'm sure you could probably use some whole grain flour too if you wanted.
Yes, we sure can. It's whatever you have in your cupboard, and it doesn't take very much. Like I said, 2, 2, 2, 2. It almost sounds like a sound. 2, 2, 2, 2. So now I'm mixing it all up. You can not have the butter in case you don't have butter. You can put that right on there. You don't need the butter. But butter, yes, it does make it better, but not best for you. So I have 2 tablespoons of butter. Mix that all up. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see it? Kind of, sort of?
Kind of, sort of.
You're just lightly coating it all, making it get all nice and coated. When I saw this recipe and I saw that it only had 2 tablespoons of flour, I'm like, I like the nice crunchiness of oatmeal, and oatmeal's good for me. So I'm going to have some oatmeal in this as well. See, these recipes that you have, they are delicious, but you can always make them your own. Like I said, if you had different types of apples in your backyard than the Granny Smith apple, well, you should use those because you don't want them to go to waste. All right, so in here, before adding our crumble on the top, it's asking for us to use 2 tablespoons of the liquid. Now, the liquid that I have in my can said it was cane sugar. So if you are diabetic, that was already enough sugar. So now I'm going to sprinkle some of this lovely topping on top. And you don't need very much. This is just the, as they call it, the icing on the cake. And that's another awesome little easy thing for our little ones to do as well. So now all we need to do is bake it for 20 to 30 minutes until it starts bubbling, and you should be ready to go. So in the meantime, here you go. Take it away with the next part.
Awesome.
Okay, put it in here.
So the last week, if you joined us last week, we kind of did a little bit of a grocery store tour. So we talked a little bit about the different sections in the grocery store and some things you can watch out for to save a little money, as well as pick out some healthier options in these different sections. Today, we're going to talk about the sections that we missed last time. So hopefully we'll talk about our the rest of the sections of our grocery store. But first, before we even go to the store, I always like to mention it's always a good idea to make a menu plan and also make a grocery list. Both of those are really great tools to help you save money and plan some healthier meals. So menu planning is exactly what it sounds like, planning your menu for the week. You can menu plan all of your meals. You can menu plan just one of your meals, whatever works best for you. There's a lot of different ways you can menu plan, but the way I like to do it is I like to look through my pantry, my fridge, my freezer, see what I have on hand, see what needs to be used up. Then I make a list of all those items, and then I make sure to add those items into my menu plan for the weeks. This kind of decreases on food waste. It helps us save a little bit of money. So really great options. After you make your menu plan, you go ahead and make a grocery list from there. Write down all the ingredients that you're going to need for all of those meals, and then make sure you cross off the ingredients that you do not need. A lot of times I'll forget that I'll have like chili powder on hand. So I'll buy 2 chili powders and then I have way more than I need. So make sure you always check your spices, your pantry, your fridge, your freezer before you go to the store and cross off the items that you don't need on your grocery list. Also, you can also check sales, as well as if you're into coupons, you can do coupons as well to save a little bit of money. But now that we're finally at the store, we've menu planned, we've made our grocery list, let's talk about these other sections that we missed from last week. First, starting with the dairy section. One thing I always like to point out in the dairy section is the sugar content of the different products. Looking specifically, I like to think about like yogurts. Yogurt can have a lot of sugar in it, but dairy is a really important part of our diet. It's part of our 5 food groups. So if you're not lactose intolerant, of course, there's a lot of different options, but yogurt can have a lot of sugar in it. It's always a good idea to turn your product around and look at that nutrition facts and check out those nutrition facts. But specifically for yogurt, something that you can do is buy plain yogurt and sweeten maybe with a little bit of honey instead, or you can just sweeten with fruit. So buying a plain yogurt is really versatile too. We've talked about this a lot before on Cooking Connected, that you can use plain yogurt as a sour cream substitute too. So not only is plain yogurt great for just eating yogurt, but it's also great for sour cream as well. Additionally, flavored milk tends to have a lot of extra sugar as well. So buying regular milk, maybe some low-fat options are great as well. Next, we're going to talk about the bread section. So there are tons of different choices in the bread section when you go to your grocery store. It's always a good idea to look for whole grain options. My Plate says that we should try to make at least half of our grains whole. So when you turn the product around, a way that you can figure out if a grain is whole or if the product is contained whole grains, is to look at the ingredients list, and the very first ingredient should say whole. That's the first word you should see in the ingredients list, is whole. That's how you can tell if it's a whole grain, or a lot of times they'll have a little golden stamp on them from the Whole Grain Council. So there's a couple of different ways you can find out if something's a whole grain, but you can implement more whole grains in your diet by buying whole grain bread. Now, don't be fooled by multi-grain breads or breads that have a lot of like seeds, sunflower seeds on top, or if they're brown. Just because bread is brown does not mean that it's a whole grain. So you do have to turn that product around and look at the ingredients list or find that whole grain label to determine if it's a whole grain. The cereal section is next. We can look for whole grains in this section as well, but something else, of course, is looking at sugar. A lot of times we have a lot of sugary sweetened cereals in the cereal section. A lot of times you'll notice they're right at eye level too. Sometimes our kiddos will see those sugary sweetened cereals, and like I think I mentioned this last time, a lot of products will pay for the placement in the store. So make sure you look around the cereal aisle, turn the product around, see if it's a whole grain, see if it has a lot of sugar in it. Those are some things to watch out for when you're in the cereal aisle. And then finally, we're going to talk about the meat section. So some things to think about in the meat section. I always like to mention ground beef. So there's a lot of lean options. We always talk about ground turkey as a substitute for ground beef. But if you really like beef, you can, of course, get products that have different percentages of meat and fat in them. So for instance, a 90-10 or an 85-15, something like that. If you buy a 90-10 ground beef, you tend to get a little bit more product. So a lot of times if you're browning off the ground beef, you'll notice that it has a lot less fat rendering off of it if you buy a 90-10. But if you buy something like a 75-25, you're going to see a lot more fat rendering off that ground beef. So you're getting a lot less product, but it is more reasonable. So if you have a sale, you can definitely buy the more reasonable. We definitely encourage you to buy the more reasonable ground beef, but a 90-10 does tend to have a little bit more product. It is a little bit more expensive though, just something to note. Some of our leaner cuts of beef also tend to have like beef and pork tend to have like the words round, loin, or leg in the name. So like pork loin, something like that. So that's something to look for if you're looking for a leaner option. And then finally, I would like to mention, of course, looking for marbling on your meat as well. So marbling is just a fat within the meat. A lot of times that does make the meat a little more tender when it has more marbling in it. But you can look for options that have a little bit less more marbling in the meat, so a little less fat in the meat and a little bit more meat options. And finally, of course, for protein, there's a lot of different other sources for protein besides just animal products. We always like to mention, beans and legumes, eggs, peanut butter, nuts, seeds, and of course, there's always tofu as an option as well. If you haven't tried tofu before, maybe you could start implementing meatless Mondays and trying your tofu out. So with that, how is it looking over there, Angelica?
Well, because of the beauty of this awesomeness, I pre-done a different one. So I've already scooped some out, but let me show you the end product without burning myself. Honestly, I wanted you to see.
Ooh, that looks good. I bet it smells good too.
It smells amazing. Now, this particular batch, I put a little bit of cinnamon in it. That's why you see the little speckles on it. So it smells amazing. It smells fallish in the kitchen today. Absolutely. And I'm falling for this recipe.
Thank you so much, Angelica, for showing us that beautiful recipe. I'm sure, I know you mentioned a little earlier, ice cream would be good on top of this, but yeah, another good option would be some vanilla yogurt if you wanted to do something different. This would also be a really great option for the holidays coming up. It is a beautiful fall recipe. So with that is today's recipe. We'd like to thank Angelica again for showing us that beautiful recipe. Thank you, Lauren, for moderating today's Cooking Connected. We greatly appreciate it. And of course, we'd like to, again, thank the creators of this recipe for this beautiful recipe. So with that, we can let you all go. Please don't forget to take our survey. Again, that is in the live chat. You will need that program code. We also have it in the description box of our videos. Other than that, we will see you hopefully again next week, same time, Thursday at 2 p.m. next week for another healthy, delicious, affordable recipe. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.